The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with the usual pre-session chatter, a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones that represented dozens of species from across the known galaxy. Ambassador Zekthal of the Vorthan Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes and checked his data pad one final time. Today's agenda included what many considered a routine matter: the admission of a newly discovered species called humans. The Vorthans had been the galaxy's dominant military force for over 3 centuries. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with 4 powerful arms and exoskeletons that could deflect most energy weapons, they had earned their reputation through conquest and strength. Zekthal took pride in his species' accomplishments, viewing other races through the lens of their military potential. "Have you reviewed the human assessment files?" asked Ambassador Quiltar, a crystalline being whose people served as the galaxy's premier scientists and researchers. Her voice chimed like wind through crystal formations. Zekthal's mandibles clicked dismissively. "I skimmed them. Another weak mammalian species from a backwater system. They barely qualify for basic membership, let alone any significant role in galactic affairs." The assessment files painted a picture of humanity that seemed almost pitifully ordinary to the assembled aliens. Humans averaged less than 6 feet in height, possessed only 2 arms, and lacked natural armor, claws, or any obvious defensive capabilities. Their homeworld of Earth sat in an unremarkable spiral arm of the Milky Way, with no strategic resources or advantageous positioning. Dr. Velnara, the Ithrian xenobiologist who had conducted the initial human studies, entered the chamber carrying additional research materials. Her 6 legs moved in perfect coordination as she approached the Vorthan delegation. The Ithrians resembled massive spiders, but had evolved into one of the galaxy's most respected scientific communities. "Ambassador Zekthal," she began, her voice carrying the precise tone that marked her species' communication style. "I wanted to discuss some unusual findings in my human research before the session begins." "Unusual how?" Zekthal's secondary arms gestured impatiently. "The files indicate standard mammalian physiology. Bone density comparable to the melor and prey species, muscle mass inferior to most predator races, and no natural weapons or defenses." Dr. Velnara's multiple eyes focused on her data pad. "That's precisely what makes my findings so puzzling. Their bodies appear designed for endurance rather than strength or speed. Their skeletal structure suggests extreme adaptability, and their brain-to-body mass ratio is remarkably high for their size category. High intelligence means little without the physical capability to implement it." Ambassador Quiltar interjected, though her tone carried more curiosity than dismissal. "My people have observed numerous intelligent species that remain trapped on their homeworlds due to physical limitations." The session moderator, a floating energy being called a Nexarch, pulsed with authoritative light patterns that demanded attention. The chamber fell silent as representatives from 47 different species turned their various sensory organs toward the central platform. "Today we consider the application for basic membership from species designation: human, homeworld, Earth, Sol system," the Nexarch announced in the universal harmonic frequency that all races could comprehend. "Standard protocol requires assessment presentations from our xenobiology, military intelligence, and cultural analysis departments." Dr. Velnara approached the central platform first, her presentation materials floating on anti-gravity platforms around her. Humans present several physiological anomalies that deserve consideration. Their bone density, while appearing weak, shows remarkable regenerative properties. Broken bones heal stronger than before, and their muscle tissue responds to stress by increasing mass and efficiency. She activated a holographic display showing human anatomical structures. More puzzling is their cardiovascular system. They possess only 1 heart, yet their endurance capabilities exceed most dual-heart species. Their blood carries oxygen with unusual efficiency, and their bodies can function in environments that would quickly exhaust more robust species. Commander Thekmon of Military Intelligence, a heavily armored reptilian whose people served as the galaxy's premier security analysts, stepped forward next. His presentation focused on human technology and warfare capabilities. "Human military technology appears primitive by our standards," he began, projecting images of human weapons and vehicles. Their projectile weapons rely on chemical propulsion rather than energy discharge. Their vehicles use combustion engines instead of anti-gravity systems. However, their tactical implementations show concerning sophistication. The holographic display shifted to show recordings from Earth's various conflicts. Humans demonstrate unusual tactical flexibility. They adapt their strategies rapidly during combat, often turning disadvantages into advantages through creative problem-solving. Their military history shows they fight most effectively when facing superior forces. Ambassador Zekthal snorted, a sound like steam escaping from a pressure valve. Primitive weapons and desperate tactics hardly constitute a threat to established galactic powers. Perhaps not individually, Commander Thekmon continued, but their organizational structures merit attention. Humans create complex hierarchical systems that function efficiently even under extreme stress. Their soldiers follow orders with dedication that borders on the irrational, yet maintain independent thinking when situations change rapidly. The cultural analysis presentation came from Dr. Hintao, a telepathic species known for their ability to understand psychological patterns across different races. Human psychology presents the most significant anomalies. They demonstrate pack loyalty stronger than most hive-mind species, yet maintain individual identity more fiercely than most solitary hunters. She activated displays showing human social structures throughout their history. Humans bond with non-family members to create artificial pack units they call teams or units. These bonds often supersede biological family loyalty and self-preservation instincts. They will sacrifice themselves for these artificial pack mates with minimal hesitation. Additionally, Dr. Hintao continued, humans show unusual responses to fear and stress. Where most species become paralyzed or flee when facing overwhelming odds, humans often become more aggressive and creative. They call this adrenaline and appear to deliberately seek situations that trigger it. The presentations concluded, leaving the assembled ambassadors to digest the information. Most species representatives seemed unimpressed by the human assessment. The Gorlexian ambassador, whose people resembled armored bears, vocalized what many were thinking. So humans are slightly clever mammals with adequate endurance and unusual psychology. This hardly distinguishes them from dozens of other minor species we've admitted to basic membership. I see no reason to debate this application. Ambassador Zekthal nodded agreement. The Vorthan Empire supports basic membership for humanity, with standard restrictions on military technology transfer and territorial expansion beyond their home system. They pose no threat to established order and might prove useful for labor-intensive projects. Dr. Velnara's legs shifted in what other species had learned to recognize as agitation. Respectfully, I believe we're underestimating significant factors. Human technological development shows exponential acceleration. They achieved space flight, global communications, and nuclear weapons within a single century. No other species has demonstrated such rapid advancement. Rapid advancement from a primitive starting point, Commander Thekmon added. Their current technology level remains centuries behind most council member species. By the time they develop meaningful capabilities, our own technology will have advanced proportionally. The Nexarch pulsed for order as minor debates broke out across the chamber. Are there any objections to granting humanity basic council membership with standard new member restrictions? Dr. Velnara's voice carried urgency that surprised many present. I request permission to conduct extended observation studies. Human behavior patterns suggest they may react unpredictably to contact with galactic civilization. Their historical responses to first contact with other human groups often involve dramatic cultural and technological leaps. Your concern is noted but deemed unnecessary, the Nexarch replied. Standard monitoring protocols will suffice for a basic member species. The application is approved with standard restrictions. As the session concluded, representatives began filing out of the chamber, most having already dismissed humanity from their thoughts. Ambassador Zekthal gathered his materials while discussing trade opportunities with neighboring systems. The humans seemed destined to join the ranks of minor species that populated the galaxy's edges, contributing little beyond basic resources and labor. Dr. Velnara remained at her station, reviewing her research materials one final time. Her scientific instincts insisted that something crucial was being overlooked. The data patterns she'd observed in human development didn't match any known species progression models. Their adaptability markers were off the charts, yet their current capabilities appeared so mundane that no one took the measurements seriously. She pulled up the files on human military conflicts again, focusing on patterns rather than technology levels. Humans consistently overcame superior forces through tactics that other species considered borderline insane. They used their environment as a weapon, turned their weaknesses into advantages, and displayed coordination that surpassed most hive-mind species despite maintaining individual consciousness. The Ithrian scientist made a personal notation to continue monitoring human development. Something about their assessment felt incomplete, like observing only a small piece of a much larger pattern. Her people had learned over millennia that the most dangerous discoveries often appeared insignificant at first glance. 3 systems away from the council chambers, Captain Sarah Chun of the Earth Colonial Marine Corps stood at attention in the briefing room of humanity's first interstellar vessel, the UES Defiance. The ship represented the pinnacle of human engineering achievement, combining captured alien technology with human innovation in ways that created something entirely new. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Rodriguez began, addressing the assembled crew, "we've just received official notification. Humanity has been accepted into the Galactic Council with basic membership status. This makes us the newest members of a community that spans thousands of inhabited worlds." The crew exchanged glances that mixed excitement with apprehension. They understood the magnitude of this moment while recognizing the challenges that lay ahead. Humanity was about to take its first steps onto a galactic stage populated by species that had been spacefaring for millennia. "Our mission parameters remain unchanged," the Admiral continued. "We're to establish peaceful contact, demonstrate human capabilities, and secure favorable trade relationships. The Council has placed restrictions on our territorial expansion and military technology transfers, which is standard procedure for new member species." Captain Chun reviewed the briefing materials on her personal tablet. The alien species profiles painted a picture of a galaxy dominated by physically superior races with advanced technology. Humans appeared to rank near the bottom in almost every measurable category except for a few obscure psychological markers that the Council seemed to consider irrelevant. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Park spoke up from the science station, "the alien technology we've integrated into our systems is still several generations behind what the major Council species possess. How are we supposed to compete in this environment?" Admiral Rodriguez smiled with an expression that had become familiar to his crew over their months of preparation. "The same way humans have always competed, Commander. We adapt, we innovate, and we refuse to quit. The Council species may have superior technology and physical capabilities, but they've also become comfortable with their advantages. Comfort breeds complacency. The ship's AI, an advanced system that combined human intuition programming with alien computational cores, provided tactical analysis on the view screen. Current projections suggest humanity will require approximately 50 years to achieve technological parity with mid-tier Council species, assuming steady advancement without significant breakthroughs. "And if we achieve significant breakthroughs?" Captain Chen asked. "Insufficient data to calculate meaningful projections," the AI replied. "Human innovation patterns don't follow standard technological development models." Admiral Rodriguez dismissed the crew to their stations as the Defiance prepared for its first jump to Council space. Humanity was about to make its debut on the galactic stage, and first impressions would be crucial for their species' future. The crew understood they carried the hopes and dreams of their entire homeworld. What they didn't realize was that they also carried something the galaxy hadn't seen in centuries. A species that thrived on being underestimated, that found strength in adversity, and that possessed an almost supernatural ability to exceed expectations when everything seemed hopeless. The Galactic Council was about to discover that their newest and seemingly weakest member might just reshape everything they thought they knew about power in the universe. The UES Defiance materialized at the edge of Council space 6 weeks after humanity's acceptance into the galactic community. Captain Chin stood on the bridge, watching as their sensors picked up the first signs of truly advanced alien civilization. Massive space stations orbited gas giants like mechanical moons, their surfaces bristling with technology that made Earth's most advanced facilities look like primitive workshops. Incoming transmission on Council diplomatic frequencies, Communications Officer Torres announced. It's from Nexus Station, requesting our identification and purpose. Admiral Rodriguez nodded to Captain Chun, who stepped forward to address the transmission. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earth Ship Defiance. We're responding to Council Directive 447 Alpha for new member species integration and diplomatic orientation. The response came in perfect English, though the voice carried harmonic undertones that suggested artificial translation. Welcome to Council Space, US Defiance. You are cleared to dock at Auxiliary Port 7. Please maintain current velocity and heading. Escort vessels will guide you to your assigned berth. 3 ships appeared on their sensors, approaching from different vectors. Captain Shin studied their configurations with professional interest. Each escort vessel was roughly twice the size of the Defiance and moved with fluid precision that spoke of advanced propulsion systems. Their hulls showed no visible weapons ports, yet something about their design suggested they could reduce the human ship to debris within seconds if necessary. Their technology is impressive, Lieutenant Commander Park observed quietly. Those ships are running completely silent on our passive sensors. We can only track them because they're allowing us to. The Defiance followed its escorts through a navigation corridor that showcased the true scope of Council civilization. Cargo vessels the size of city blocks moved between industrial platforms that could have housed millions of inhabitants. Mining operations stripped asteroids bare with efficiency that boggled human understanding, and constructor ships assembled new stations in real time using techniques that seemed to violate several laws of physics. My God, Ensign Walsh whispered from the tactical station. How do you even begin to compete with something like this? Admiral Rodriguez overheard the comment and moved to stand beside the young officer. The same way David competed with Goliath, Ensign. You find the weak spots, exploit advantages they don't know they have given you, and never fight their fight on their terms. Nexus Station grew larger as they approached, revealing a structure that defied easy comprehension. The station appeared to be grown rather than built, with organic curves that suggested some form of biological engineering. Docking bays opened like flower petals to accept arriving vessels, and the entire structure pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that served purposes the human crew could only guess at. Port 7 turned out to be located in a section clearly designed for smaller vessels from lesser species. The docking bays around them held ships that looked cramped and utilitarian compared to the sleek vessels berthed in the primary sections. Captain Chun noted the subtle message this arrangement sent about humanity's status in the galactic hierarchy. Docking clamps secured, reported Chief Petty Officer Kim from Engineering. Station atmosphere is compatible with our life support, though they're maintaining their own environmental controls in the interface areas. Admiral Rodriguez reviewed the briefing materials one final time as they prepared to disembark. Remember, our mission is observation and relationship building. We're here to learn how this system works and identify opportunities for humanity to contribute meaningfully. Everyone stays professional, alert, and humble. Let them underestimate us while we figure out how they really operate. The delegation that met them at the airlock consisted of 3 different species, each representing different aspects of Council operations. A tall, crystalline being introduced herself as Administrator Velkas of Station Operations. Beside her stood a reptilian figure in military dress whom she identified as Security Liaison Gortha K. The third member of their welcome party was Dr. Velnara, the Ithrian scientist who had presented humanity's assessment to the Council. Welcome to Nexus Station, Administrator Velkas chimed in her musical voice. We've prepared orientation materials for your crew and scheduled meetings with various department heads to discuss integration procedures. Dr. Velnara's multiple eyes focused on Admiral Rodriguez with obvious interest. I've been assigned as your primary liaison during this orientation period. My research into human psychology and development should help facilitate smoother interactions with Council systems. Captain Chen noticed that security liaison Gorthe had remained silent throughout the introductions, though his reptilian features suggested careful evaluation of the human delegation. His stance and positioning marked him as a professional warrior assessing potential threats. The fact that he showed no obvious concern about the human visitors spoke volumes about how the council viewed their capabilities. The orientation tour began in the station's cultural center, where representatives from dozens of species conducted business, socialized, and exchanged information. The diversity was staggering. Floating energy beings negotiated with crystalline structures that might have been living computers. Four-armed giants in ceremonial armor discussed territorial boundaries with insectoid creatures whose transparent exoskeletons revealed internal organs that shifted color with their emotions. The council operates on a merit-based hierarchy, Dr. Velnara explained as they walked through the center's main concourse. Species advancement depends on demonstrable contributions to galactic civilization. Military prowess, technological innovation, resource production, and cultural development all factor into determining status and privileges. What kind of contributions has humanity been assessed for? Admiral Rodriguez asked carefully. Administrator Velcas's crystalline structure flickered in patterns that might have been amusement. Your species shows potential for manual labor positions and resource extraction operations. Many newer species begin their council participation in support roles while developing more advanced capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Park exchanged glances with Captain Chen. The humans were being politely relegated to the bottom of the galactic food chain, expected to perform menial tasks while more established species handled important matters. It was a familiar pattern from Earth's own history, but applying it to an entire species felt particularly galling. Their next stop was the Military Coordination Center, where security liaison Gorthe finally began to speak. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Council military operations are handled primarily by the Vorthan Empire, with support from allied species based on their capabilities, he explained, gesturing toward tactical displays that showed fleet movements across multiple sectors. New species typically provide garrison forces for their home systems, while more experienced militaries handle inter-sector security. Captain Chen studied the tactical information with professional interest. The Council's military doctrine appeared to rely heavily on overwhelming technological superiority and numerical advantage. Their battle formations were precise, but rigid, designed to maximize firepower against expected threats. There was little evidence of the tactical flexibility that characterized human military thinking. What types of threats does the Council face? She asked. Primarily pirate organizations, rogue nations that refuse Council membership, and occasional disputes between member species, Gorthe replied. The galaxy has been relatively stable for the past 2 centuries. Our military systems are designed to maintain that stability efficiently. The tour continued through research facilities, trade centers, and diplomatic quarters. Each area reinforced the same message. The Council was a well-established system with clear hierarchies and defined roles. Humanity would be expected to fit into predetermined categories rather than forge new paths. Dr. Velnara seemed to sense the humans' growing frustration with their assigned status. As they concluded the formal tour, she requested a private meeting with Admiral Rodriguez and Captain Chen in her research quarters. I want to discuss something that didn't make it into the official assessments, she began once they were alone. Her scientific equipment hummed quietly around them, creating an environment that felt more like a laboratory than an office. Your species shows developmental patterns that don't match our standard models. She activated a holographic display showing comparative data charts. Most species follow predictable advancement curves. They develop specific capabilities at certain rates based on their physical and mental characteristics. Humans appear to be following a completely different trajectory. Different how? Captain Chen asked, leaning forward to study the data projections. Your technological advancement rate is exponential rather than linear, Dr. Velnara explained. Most species require thousands of years to progress from basic tool use to space flight. Humans accomplished this in approximately 10,000 years, with the majority of advancement occurring in the last 2 centuries. Admiral Rodriguez nodded slowly. We tend to build on previous innovations rather than just replace them. Our technology evolves through combination and adaptation. That's precisely what concerns me, Dr. Velnara continued. The Council's power structure depends on technological stability. Species advance gradually, maintaining clear hierarchies based on development levels. If humans continue advancing at their current rate, they could disrupt established patterns. She switched to different data sets, showing Council member species' historical development. The Vorthans achieved their current military dominance through steady advancement over 3,000 years. The Crystalline Collective developed their computational superiority through 5,000 years of gradual improvement. Every major council power built their position through time and consistency. And you think we might upset that balance? Captain Chen asked. I think you might render it irrelevant, Dr. Velnara replied bluntly. Human creativity and adaptability markers are unlike anything in our databases. You don't just solve problems, you redefine what the problems are. That's either extremely valuable or extremely dangerous, depending on perspective. The Ithrian scientist paused, her multiple eyes focusing on different displays simultaneously. I've been monitoring your ship systems since you arrived. Your technology integration methods are fascinating. You've combined our computational cores with your own programming in ways we never considered. The result is more efficient than either system alone. Admiral Rodriguez realized they were treading on sensitive ground. Dr. Velnara seemed genuinely interested in human potential, but she was also clearly evaluating them for the Council. How much should they reveal about their capabilities? We've always been good at making do with what we have, he said carefully. Human history is full of examples of turning disadvantages into advantages through creative application. Yes, Dr. Velnara agreed. And that's what worries some Council members. Established powers prefer predictable challenges they can prepare for. Humans represent an unknown factor in carefully balanced equations. Captain Chen sensed an opportunity. Are you suggesting that our creativity could be valuable to Council operations? I'm suggesting that your creativity could revolutionize Council operations, Dr. Velnara replied. The question is whether the Council is ready for that kind of revolution. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert that echoed through the station's communication systems. Administrator Velkas's voice carried unprecedented urgency as she announced a general assembly of all diplomatic delegations. In the main assembly hall, representatives from dozens of species gathered to hear Commander Thekmon deliver a briefing that would change everything. His reptilian features showed none of their usual composure as he addressed the assembled crowd. 3 hours ago, our monitoring stations detected massive energy signatures in the outer spiral region. A previously unknown force has eliminated the hegemony of Krell and is advancing toward Council space. Initial reports suggest technology levels significantly beyond current Council capabilities. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. The hegemony of Krell was a rogue nation that had refused Council membership for over a century. They possessed advanced military technology and had maintained independence through superior firepower and strategic positioning. For them to be eliminated so quickly suggested the appearance of a truly formidable threat. What do we know about this unknown force? Asked Ambassador Zekthal of the Vorthans. Very little, Commander Thekmon replied. They appear to use weapons that disrupt matter at the quantum level. Their ships don't match any known design patterns, and their tactics suggest complete disregard for conventional military doctrine. Most concerning, they've been attempting to communicate with us using mathematical sequences that imply intelligence far beyond our current understanding. The assembly erupted in debates about response strategies, defense preparations, and diplomatic approaches. Traditional Council thinking suggested several courses of action: mobilize the Vorthan fleets, activate defensive alliances, and attempt communication through established protocols. Admiral Rodriguez listened to the discussions with growing realization. The Council's response followed predictable patterns based on centuries of successful operations. They were applying proven solutions to an unprecedented problem. Human experience suggested this approach might be insufficient. He caught Captain Chen's attention and gestured toward the exit. They needed to discuss this development with their crew and consider what role humanity might play in the coming crisis. As they left the assembly hall, Dr. Velnara intercepted them. "Admiral Rodriguez," she said quietly, "I think this situation might require the kind of creative problem-solving that humans seem to excel at. Would your delegation be willing to participate in strategic planning sessions?" "Officially, we're just observers," Rodriguez replied. "But unofficially, we're always willing to help solve problems." Dr. Velnara's multiple eyes focused on him with intensity that suggested she was making a crucial decision. "Then, perhaps it's time the Council learned what humans are really capable of." Within 6 hours of the emergency assembly, the situation had deteriorated beyond anyone's expectations. Commander Thekmon's briefing room had become a war council where species that normally competed for status found themselves facing an existential threat that made their traditional rivalries seem petty. "The unknown force has eliminated 2 more systems," he announced to the gathered military leaders. "Our long-range sensors show their advance has accelerated rather than slowed. Previous estimates suggested we had weeks to prepare. Current projections give us perhaps days." Ambassador Zekthal's 4 arms gestured in patterns that conveyed both authority and mounting frustration. "The Vorthan battle fleet is the most powerful military force in known space. Our ships can engage targets across entire solar systems. How can any unknown species pose a significant threat to our established defenses?" Dr. Velnara activated holographic displays showing the destruction patterns left by the advancing force. "The evidence suggests they're not using conventional weapons at all. Their attacks appear to target the fundamental forces that hold matter together. Ships don't explode. They simply cease to exist at the atomic level." Captain Shin studied the tactical data with the analytical mindset that had made her one of Earth's most respected military strategists. The unknown force's movement patterns showed several interesting characteristics that the Council military leaders seemed to be missing. "Their advance isn't random," she observed quietly to Admiral Rodriguez. "They're following specific routes that suggest intelligence gathering rather than simple conquest." Admiral Rodriguez nodded, having reached similar conclusions. "They're probing defenses, testing response times, and analyzing Council military capabilities. This isn't an invasion, it's reconnaissance in force." Dr. Velnara overheard their analysis and turned to address them directly. "Could you elaborate on that assessment?" The room fell silent as representatives from dozens of species focused their attention on the humans. Captain Shin realized this was humanity's first opportunity to demonstrate their military thinking to the galactic community. How they handled this moment would determine whether their species remained relegated to labor roles or gained recognition as valuable strategic partners. "Their attack patterns show tactical patience," she began, activating the holographic controls to highlight specific movement vectors. "Each assault eliminates resistance completely before advancing to the next target. They're not trying to capture territory quickly. They're ensuring they understand our capabilities before committing to major engagements." She manipulated the display to show temporal sequences of the attacks. "Look at the timing intervals. They pause after each victory to analyze the wreckage and study our defensive strategies. This suggests they're learning our tactics in real time and adapting their approaches accordingly." Commander Thekmon's reptilian features showed professional interest despite his obvious reluctance to accept strategic advice from the galaxy's newest species. "What do you conclude from this behavior pattern?" "They're either extremely cautious despite overwhelming technological superiority, or they're preparing for something much larger than what we've seen so far," Captain Shin replied. "In human military history, reconnaissance in force usually precedes major offensive operations." Admiral Rodriguez stepped forward to support his captain's analysis. "The key question isn't how to stop their current advance. It's how to prepare for whatever they're really planning." Ambassador Zekthal's mandibles clicked dismissively. "Theoretical analysis is interesting, but we need practical solutions. The Vorthan fleet consists of 12,000 heavy cruisers, each capable of sterilizing entire planets. How do we deploy this force effectively against enemies who can dissolve matter at the quantum level?" "You don't," Captain Shin said bluntly, causing shocked silence throughout the briefing room. "Conventional military thinking suggests meeting superior force with greater force. But if they can negate your technological advantages, force multiplication becomes force multiplication of 0. She gestured toward the tactical displays showing Vorthan fleet formations. Your standard battle doctrine relies on overwhelming firepower delivered through predictable patterns. Against conventional enemies, this approach has been successful for centuries. Against enemies with unknown capabilities, it becomes a liability. Dr. Velnara's scientific curiosity overcame diplomatic protocol. What alternative would you suggest? Asymmetric warfare, Admiral Rodriguez replied. You don't fight their strengths, you force them to fight your strengths. The unknown force expects to encounter predictable resistance based on established Council military patterns. Give them something completely different. Commander Thekmon's professional skepticism was evident in his voice. The Vorthan Empire has achieved military dominance through superior technology and proven tactics. You're suggesting we abandon these advantages for untested theories from a species that has never fought interstellar wars. I'm suggesting you supplement proven tactics with adaptive strategies, Captain Chen corrected. Human military history includes numerous examples of technologically inferior forces defeating superior enemies through creative application of available resources. She activated her personal data pad and began projecting historical examples onto the main display. Guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, technological improvisation, and strategic deception have allowed smaller forces to overcome larger ones throughout our history. The assembled military leaders studied the human historical data with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. Most species had achieved dominance through straightforward application of superior capabilities. The concept of deliberately avoiding direct confrontation seemed almost cowardly to warriors who had built their reputations on overwhelming force. These examples involve conflicts between comparable species on single planets, Ambassador Zekthal pointed out. Interstellar warfare operates according to different principles entirely. Does it? Admiral Rodriguez asked. The underlying psychology of conflict remains consistent across different scales. Enemies who expect certain behaviors become vulnerable to unexpected approaches. The unknown force is studying our conventional responses to develop countermeasures. What if we gave them unconventional responses instead? Dr. Velnara's multiple eyes focused on different aspects of the human tactical proposals simultaneously. Your suggestions require coordination between multiple species with different capabilities and command structures. The Council military operates through established hierarchies that ensure efficient resource allocation. Efficiency isn't always effectiveness, Captain Chen replied. Sometimes you need organized chaos rather than organized precision. Their strategic discussion was interrupted by urgent communications from the outer defense perimeter. The unknown force had accelerated their advance beyond all projections and was now only 3 systems away from Council core territories. More significantly, they were broadcasting communication attempts on frequencies that suggested knowledge of Council technology far beyond what reconnaissance could have provided. Administrator Velkas's crystalline voice carried unprecedented strain as she addressed the War Council. The unknown force is requesting direct communication with Council leadership. Their transmission includes technical specifications for our most classified military systems. They know things about our capabilities that even most Council members don't know. The implications sent shock waves through the assembled representatives. Either the unknown force possessed intelligence-gathering capabilities that made resistance futile, or they had insider knowledge that suggested betrayal from within Council ranks. We need to consider the possibility that our conventional security measures have been completely compromised, Dr. Velnara observed. If they understand our military systems this thoroughly, traditional defensive strategies may be worthless. Commander Thekmon reviewed the incoming communication data with growing alarm. These technical specifications are accurate down to quantum-level details. Obtaining this information would require physical examination of our most secure facilities. Or, Captain Chen suggested, it would require understanding technology development patterns well enough to reverse engineer capabilities from observable effects. She gestured toward the tactical displays showing the unknown forces advancement. What if they're not just studying our current defenses? What if they understand our technological development well enough to predict our capabilities before we develop them? The briefing room fell silent as the assembled leaders absorbed the implications of this possibility. If the unknown force could anticipate Council technological advancement, they could develop countermeasures for weapons that didn't even exist yet. Admiral Rodriguez recognized the strategic paradigm shift occurring around them. We're not just facing an enemy with superior technology. We're facing an enemy with superior understanding of how technology evolves. They're fighting a war several generations ahead of where we think we are. Then, how do we compete with that level of strategic thinking? Asked Ambassador Zekthal, his earlier dismissive attitude replaced by genuine concern. We stop competing on their terms, Captain Chen replied. Human experience suggests that when you can't win the game being played, you change the rules of the game itself. Dr. Velnara turned to address Admiral Rodriguez directly. You're proposing that humanity could provide strategic alternatives that the Council hasn't considered. I'm proposing that humanity could provide strategic alternatives that nobody has considered, he corrected. Our species specializes in impossible solutions to impossible problems. The War Council session was interrupted by another priority alert. The unknown force had reached the edge of the Nexus system, home to the station where they were currently meeting. Rather than engaging the defensive fleet, they had transmitted a message specifically requesting communication with the newest member species of the Galactic Council. Administrator Velkas's voice carried disbelief as she relayed the message. They're asking to speak with humanity's representatives. Captain Chun and Admiral Rodriguez exchanged glances that communicated volumes about the situation they suddenly found themselves in. Humanity had been granted basic council membership less than 2 months ago, and were still considered little more than promising manual laborers. Now an unknown force with incomprehensible capabilities was specifically requesting to speak with them. This could be an intelligence-gathering operation, Commander Thekmon warned. They might believe humans possess strategic information they don't already have. Or, Dr. Velnara suggested, they might recognize something about human capabilities that we've overlooked in our assessments. Admiral Rodriguez made a command decision that would define humanity's role in galactic affairs for generations to come. We'll accept their communication request, but under specific conditions. The conversation takes place in open session with all council representatives present. We share whatever information we gather, and we maintain full transparency about human capabilities and limitations. Ambassador Zekthal's mandibles clicked approval. If humans are willing to take this risk on behalf of the entire council, the Vorthan Empire will support their diplomatic authority in these negotiations. Other species representatives voiced similar support, recognizing that humanity was volunteering to face an unknown threat that could destroy them all. The newest and supposedly weakest council members were stepping forward to protect civilizations that had dismissed them as irrelevant. As the communication link was established, Captain Chen realized that humanity was about to discover whether their reputation for rising to impossible challenges would prove accurate on a galactic scale. The unknown force awaited, carrying secrets that could reshape everything the galaxy thought it knew about power, intelligence, and survival. The next few minutes would determine whether humanity's first major contribution to galactic civilization would be their last. The communication chamber aboard Nexus Station fell silent as the unknown force's transmission stabilized. What appeared on the main view screen defied every expectation the council representatives had formed about their mysterious adversaries. Instead of alien beings or incomprehensible entities, the display showed what appeared to be humans. The figure addressing them stood nearly 7 feet tall with proportions that seemed slightly elongated compared to baseline humanity. Their features carried familiar human characteristics, but with subtle differences that suggested either genetic modification or evolutionary divergence. Most unsettling were their eyes, which held depth of knowledge that seemed to span millennia. Greetings to our distant cousins. The figure spoke in perfect English, though something in their pronunciation suggested it wasn't their native language. I am Coordinator Vex of the Terran Ascendancy. We have traveled far to make contact with the branch of humanity that chose to remain bound to its birth world. Captain Chun felt her blood turn to ice as the implications crashed over her. The unknown force that had been systematically eliminating council defenses wasn't alien at all. They were human. They were what humanity had become somewhere else in the galaxy, under different circumstances. Admiral Rodriguez found his voice first. Coordinator Vex, I am Admiral Rodriguez representing Earth and the United Earth Government. We had no knowledge of other human populations beyond our solar system. Of course not. Vex replied with what might have been amusement. Your branch of humanity is still confined to a single star system, still debating whether you're alone in the universe. We are what your species becomes when it embraces its true potential instead of accepting limitations imposed by lesser minds. Ambassador Zekthul stepped forward, his four arms spread in diplomatic positioning. You claim to represent an advanced human civilization, yet you've destroyed several council member systems without provocation or warning. How do you justify these acts of aggression? Coordinator Vex's attention shifted to the Vorthan ambassador, and something in their expression suggested they were evaluating him the way a scientist might examine an interesting but primitive specimen. Aggression? We eliminated obsolete systems that served no purpose beyond maintaining artificial scarcity and enforced weakness. The hegemony of Krell and their associated territories were preventing galactic advancement through their adherence to failed paradigms. Those systems contained billions of sentient beings, Dr. Velnara interjected, her multiple eyes focusing intently on the human figure. How can you dismiss their destruction so casually? Because survival of the unfit ensures extinction of the capable, Vex replied without apparent emotion. The galaxy faces challenges that require evolutionary advancement, not preservation of inefficient biological and technological systems. We represent what adaptation and advancement can achieve when not constrained by misguided ethical limitations. Captain Shin realized they were facing a version of humanity that had developed along radically different philosophical lines. Where Earth's civilization had emphasized cooperation, diversity, and ethical progress, these humans appeared to have embraced ruthless efficiency and technological supremacy as their primary values. What do you want from the Council? She asked directly. Want? Vex seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. We don't want anything from the Council. We are informing you of new realities that will reshape this galaxy. Your crude confederation of primitive species is about to become irrelevant. We're offering our distant cousins an opportunity to join the ascendancy before the obsolete systems are replaced. Admiral Rodriguez felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. You've been testing Council defenses to evaluate technological capabilities before making contact. Testing suggests uncertainty about outcomes, Vex corrected. We were demonstrating the futility of resistance to encourage rational decision-making. Your military systems operate according to principles we mastered centuries ago. The displays of our capabilities were educational rather than evaluative. Commander Thekmon stepped forward with the controlled aggression that marked his species' warrior culture. The Vorthan Empire has maintained galactic stability for over 3 centuries. We will not surrender our territories to invaders, regardless of their claimed superiority. Coordinator Vex studied the reptilian military leader with obvious interest. The Vorthans. Yes, we've analyzed your empire extensively. Impressive organization, adequate technology for current galactic standards, but fundamentally limited by biological constraints and philosophical rigidity. You've achieved local dominance through application of superior force to inferior opposition. Their expression shifted to something that might have been pity. Unfortunately, you've now encountered opposition that renders your advantages meaningless. Your heaviest weapons cannot damage our defensive systems. Your fastest ships cannot escape our pursuit capabilities. Your most advanced sensors cannot detect our presence when we choose concealment. To demonstrate their point, Vex gestured towards something beyond the viewscreen's range. We currently have 300 vessels within your system's defensive perimeter. Your sensors detect none of them because we understand the principles underlying your detection technology better than you do. Administrator Velkas's crystalline structure flickered with patterns that conveyed deep alarm. Impossible. Our sensor networks have been tested against every known stealth technology. No force could position hundreds of ships within our system without detection. No force using technology you understand could accomplish this, Vex agreed. We are not using technology you understand. The Terran ascendancy has transcended the developmental limitations that constrain other species. We have achieved what your council considers theoretically impossible. Dr. Velnara's scientific curiosity overcame her diplomatic restraint. How? What technological breakthrough enabled such dramatic advancement? It wasn't technology, Vex replied. It was evolution. The humans you know represent our species in its larval stage, still bound by biological limitations and ethical constraints that prevent true advancement. We represent what humanity becomes when it embraces rational development principles. Captain Shin felt a chill of recognition as she began to understand what Coordinator Vex was describing. You're talking about deliberate genetic modification and cognitive enhancement. Among other developments, yes, Vex confirmed. We eliminated genetic inefficiencies, enhanced cognitive capabilities, extended lifespans to allow accumulation of meaningful knowledge, and, most importantly, we removed the emotional and ethical limitations that prevent rational decision-making. Admiral Rodriguez realized they were facing humanity's potential future, but a future that had discarded everything he considered essentially human. What happened to individual freedom, cultural diversity, and personal choice in your society? Those concepts became irrelevant when we achieved sufficient intelligence to understand optimal solutions to societal problems, Vex explained. Individual freedom is inefficient when exercised by individuals lacking the knowledge to make optimal decisions. Cultural diversity is wasteful when some cultures are objectively superior to others. Personal choice is counterproductive when personal preferences conflict with species advancement. The assembled council representatives listened to this exchange with growing horror. They were witnessing a version of humanity that had achieved incredible technological advancement by abandoning everything that made humanity appealing as a galactic partner. You're describing totalitarian efficiency, Captain Shin observed. A society where individual worth is determined by contribution to state objectives. We're describing rational organization, Vex corrected. A society where resources are allocated according to logical principles rather than emotional preferences. The result is technological advancement that has rendered traditional galactic powers obsolete within a matter of centuries. Commander Thekmon's reptilian features showed the controlled fury of a warrior facing an enemy who considered his entire civilization irrelevant. And what gives you the right to determine which civilizations are obsolete? The same thing that gives stellar fusion the right to determine which planetary temperatures are sustainable, Vex replied. Natural law. Advanced civilizations replace primitive ones through inevitable evolutionary processes. We represent the next stage of development that your current systems cannot achieve while maintaining their inefficient organizational principles. Dr. Velnara stepped forward with data pad in hand, her multiple eyes analyzing readings that seemed to disturb her greatly. Our sensors are detecting gravitational anomalies throughout the system. Something is manipulating space-time on a massive scale. Our fleet is preparing to demonstrate post-scarcity resource manipulation, Vex acknowledged. The planets in this system contain materials that could be more efficiently organized for productive purposes. We will be restructuring the local matter distribution to optimize resource availability. The implications hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. The Ascendancy wasn't just threatening to conquer council space. They were planning to disassemble entire worlds to use the raw materials more efficiently. You're talking about destroying inhabited planets, Admiral Rodriguez said with careful control. We're talking about reorganizing inefficient matter distributions, Vex corrected. The biological entities currently occupying these planetary surfaces will be relocated to more suitable environments or processed for their component materials, depending on their adaptive potential. Captain Shin realized they had reached a crucial moment in galactic history. Humanity's cousins from the stars represented everything their own species could become if they chose advancement over ethics, efficiency over freedom, and rational optimization over individual dignity. And what about Earth? She asked quietly. What is the Ascendancy plan for our homeworld? Coordinator Vex's expression showed something that might have been genuine interest. Earth presents unique opportunities. Your population retains the adaptability that made human advancement possible, but you haven't yet committed to the inefficient value systems that constrain other galactic civilizations. You could potentially be integrated into the Ascendancy with minimal processing. Processing? Admiral Rodriguez asked. Cognitive optimization, genetic correction, psychological adjustment to remove counterproductive behavioral patterns, Vex explained. The conversion from baseline humanity to ascendancy standards typically requires several generations, but your people show excellent potential for successful adaptation. The communication chamber fell silent as everyone present absorbed the true scope of the choice facing not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. The Terran ascendancy offered advancement beyond anything the Council had achieved, but at the cost of everything that made life worth living. Captain Shin realized that humanity was about to face its greatest test not as the galaxy's weakest species, but as the only species that might understand their enemies well enough to find a way to resist them. The battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin, and it would be fought not with weapons or technology, but with competing visions of what intelligent life should become. The silence in the communication chamber stretched for nearly a full minute as the assembled council representatives processed what they had just learned. Humanity's supposedly primitive cousin species had just revealed themselves as an existential threat to every value system the galaxy had developed over millennia. Captain Chun broke the silence with a question that cut to the heart of their situation. Coordinator Vex, you mentioned that we retain adaptability that made human advancement possible. What exactly do you mean by that? Vex's elongated features showed what might have been approval. Excellent question. Most galactic civilizations achieve stability through specialization. They develop specific advantages and build their societies around maintaining those advantages. The result is technological and cultural stagnation. They gestured toward the assembled aliens. The Vorthans achieved military dominance and organized their entire civilization around maintaining superior force. The crystalline collective developed computational superiority and structured everything around information processing efficiency. Each species found their niche and stopped evolving. Dr. Velnara's multiple eyes focused intently on the human figure. You're suggesting that specialization leads to evolutionary dead ends. Not suggesting, Vex replied. Demonstrating. We've encountered 17 different galactic confederations during our expansion across this region of space. All followed the same pattern. Initial diversity leading to specialized dominance, followed by technological stagnation and eventual replacement by more adaptive species. Admiral Rodriguez felt a chill of understanding. And humanity's adaptability makes us different how? Your species refuses to accept limitations, Vex explained. Where other races develop efficient solutions and implement them permanently, humans continuously seek better solutions. You treat every achievement as a stepping stone rather than a destination. They activated what appeared to be historical data displays showing human development patterns. In the 400 years since we left Earth, your branch of humanity has advanced from primitive chemical rockets to integration with captured alien technology. You've maintained technological flexibility while other species become locked into established patterns. Captain Shin realized they were being evaluated for recruitment potential rather than simply being offered surrender terms. But you said we haven't committed to the inefficient value systems that constrain other civilizations. What if we choose to maintain those values despite the technological limitations they might impose? Coordinator Vex's expression shifted to something resembling disappointment. Then, you would be choosing extinction. The galaxy contains forces that require advanced capabilities to survive. Ethical limitations that prevent optimal resource utilization become fatal weaknesses when facing existential threats. What forces? Commander Thekmon demanded. What threats could justify abandoning everything that makes life worth living? Vex paused, seeming to consider how much information to reveal. The galaxy is not empty beyond your council's explored regions. There are entities that make the ascendancy look like children playing with primitive tools. Some are machine intelligences that view biological life as inefficient matter organization. Others are energy beings that consume entire star systems for sustenance. They reactivated the display to show star maps extending far beyond known council space. We have encountered 12 different types of galactic-level threats during our expansion. Each required different survival strategies. Some demanded technological superiority. Others required social flexibility. A few could only be survived through sheer ruthless efficiency in resource allocation. Dr. Velnara studied the displayed information with growing alarm. You're describing threats that could eliminate all biological life in the galaxy. We're describing threats that will eliminate all biological life in the galaxy unless someone develops adequate countermeasures, Vex corrected. The ascendancy represents the minimum advancement level necessary for species survival on a galactic scale. Admiral Rodriguez recognized the psychological warfare inherent in this revelation. Whether true or false, the information created a framework where the ascendancy's methods appeared justified by external necessities rather than internal choices. Even if these threats exist, he said carefully, there might be alternative approaches to developing adequate countermeasures. Human history suggests that diversity of approaches often produces better solutions than single-minded optimization. Human history covers approximately 10,000 years of development on a single planet, Vex replied. Ascendancy history covers 400,000 years of development across 17 galaxy-spanning civilizations. Which dataset provides more reliable guidance for long-term survival strategies? Captain Chen felt the weight of the choice facing not just humanity, but every species in Council space. Accept the Ascendancy's vision and sacrifice everything that made life meaningful to ensure survival. Reject it and face potential extinction from threats beyond current comprehension. There's a third option, she said quietly. Everyone in the chamber turned to focus on her. Even Coordinator Vex seemed genuinely curious about what alternative she might propose. We've been thinking about this as a binary choice between acceptance and resistance, she continued. But human adaptability means we're not limited to the options being presented. We can create new options. Admiral Rodriguez realized where she was heading and felt a mix of pride and terror at his captain's audacity. You're proposing that we attempt to find alternative solutions to galactic-level threats without sacrificing human values. I'm proposing that we bet everything on the one advantage that made humans special in the first place, Captain Chen replied. Our refusal to accept that any problem is unsolvable if approached with sufficient creativity and persistence. Vex studied her with obvious interest. You're suggesting that baseline humanity could develop countermeasures to galactic-level threats while maintaining inefficient ethical systems and diverse cultural approaches. I'm suggesting that those inefficient systems might be what enables the creative problem-solving necessary to find solutions the Ascendancy hasn't considered, she corrected. You've optimized for efficiency and logical progression. We've maintained the chaos and contradiction that sparks innovation. The chamber fell silent as the implications of this proposal sank in. Humanity wasn't just rejecting the Ascendancy's offer. They were claiming they could outperform the Ascendancy's achievements while maintaining everything the advanced humans had discarded. Commander Thekmon's reptilian features showed professional interest in this strategic approach. You're proposing to compete with enemies who have centuries of advancement advantage by using methods they consider inferior. We're proposing to compete by using methods they've forgotten, Admiral Rodriguez clarified. The Ascendancy has become exactly what Coordinator Vex described, a specialized civilization that's achieved dominance through specific advantages. They've lost the adaptability that made human advancement possible in the first place. Dr. Velnara's multiple eyes focused on different aspects of the strategic discussion simultaneously. This approach would require unprecedented cooperation between Council species with fundamentally different capabilities and value systems. Exactly, Captain Chen agreed. The kind of coordination that's impossible for optimized civilizations, but natural for chaotic, inefficient, ethically constrained societies that refuse to accept logical limitations. Coordinator Vex's expression showed what might have been amusement or contempt. You're betting galactic survival on the belief that primitive cooperation can overcome advanced efficiency. We're betting galactic survival on the belief that human adaptability is more powerful than human optimization, Admiral Rodriguez replied. The Ascendancy represents what humans become when they stop being human. We represent what humans can achieve by becoming more human. Ambassador Zekthul stepped forward, his forearms spread in ceremonial positioning. The Vorthan Empire has maintained stability through superior force for 3 centuries. But perhaps it's time to discover what we might achieve through superior cooperation. Other council representatives voiced similar support, recognizing that humanity was offering them an alternative to surrender or extinction. The galaxy's newest and supposedly weakest members were proposing to lead a resistance based on the very qualities that had led to their dismissal as irrelevant. Vex observed this display of unity with obvious disappointment. You're choosing the difficult path when we've offered you a simple solution. The Ascendancy will proceed with galactic optimization regardless of your decision. Your resistance will only delay inevitable advancement while causing unnecessary suffering. Maybe, Captain Chen acknowledged. But if we're wrong, we'll fail as ourselves rather than succeed as something we don't recognize. And if we're right, we'll prove that there are some things more important than survival itself. Such as, Vex asked, the right to fail on our own terms, Admiral Rodriguez replied. The freedom to find our own solutions to impossible problems. The dignity that comes from choosing our own values, even when those choices make survival harder. Coordinator Vex studied the assembled council representatives for a long moment, their enhanced cognition obviously processing probabilities and outcomes beyond normal human comprehension. The Ascendancy will allow you to attempt your alternative approach. When you fail, we will return to discuss more rational solutions. And if we succeed? Dr. Vel_Nara asked. Then, you will have achieved something we considered impossible, Vex admitted. Which would suggest that our optimization process eliminated capabilities we should have preserved. An interesting experimental outcome that could inform future development strategies. The transmission ended, leaving the council representatives alone with the weight of their decision. They had committed to competing with the most advanced human civilization in the galaxy, using methods those advanced humans considered primitive and inefficient. Captain Chen realized that humanity had just transformed from the Council's most junior members to the leaders of galactic resistance against impossible odds. It was exactly the kind of situation that had defined human achievement throughout their history. Facing overwhelming enemies with insufficient resources and refusing to accept defeat. The battle for the galaxy's future would be fought with human weapons after all. Not human technology or human strength, but human stubbornness, human creativity, and human refusal to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable. The aliens had assumed humans were feeble until they encountered humanity's true power, the absolute determination to remain human no matter how much easier it might be to become something else. Now the galaxy would discover whether that power was enough to reshape the universe itself. 3 months later, as Council fleets began implementing tactical innovations that combined human creativity with alien capabilities, Dr. Vel_Nara updated her research files with a new assessment. Humans were not the galaxy's weakest species after all. They were the galaxy's most stubborn species, and, in a universe that demanded conformity to survive, stubbornness might prove to be the ultimate advantage. The war for galactic freedom had begun, led by a species that had learned to turn every weakness into strength and every limitation into an opportunity. The Ascendancy had given them a choice between efficiency and humanity. They had chosen humanity, and now they would discover whether that choice could save everything else worth preserving in the universe.